He has two separate career paths from that of his brother, and I just think can do a lot more good separated from the royal family with those constraints with what their passion is.
Every astronaut is itching to get back to space. That's what we train so hard for. The next 5 years in space travel is going to be incredibly exciting.
You're never too young to get a smear, I think, because if I had been 25, my story would have been a really different one.
Someone told me 10 years ago, projected what was going to be happening. They said, "You're crazy."
It was a historic meeting between a divided family, and it was only right the Queen would deliver the outcomes.
And this is a very big seismic moment, if you like, for the royal family. You have these two people who have been living this life, doing these duties as they have been done before, who are saying, actually, no, we don't want to do it like this anymore. We want to do things differently. We want a new model.
Her Majesty said she's supportive of their desire to create a new life as a family, and said there would be a transition period where Harry and Meghan will split their time between the UK and Canada. Well, I'm joined now by Dean Stott, who's been friends with Prince Harry for 12 years since they served in the army together. Really pleased you could come in today. Thanks so much for joining us. As we say, you've known Prince Harry for a huge number of years. What did you make of that statement that he issued? It appeared to come as a bolt out of the blue to lots of us who don't know him, but for someone who did, what did you make of it when he said that he wanted, with his wife, to step back from being senior royals?
Well, obviously I heard firsthand with yourselves, but I wasn't surprised with the decision. Harry's his personal circumstances have changed in the last 2 years. He's now with Meghan, he's got a young boy, Archie. He's always been vocal in the fact that he's wanted a family.
Well, yes, and so what is driving this desire, do you think? You say in the last couple of years he's now got a family. Is a lot of it about protecting his family, about wanting to focus on his family? What's changed to make him want to make this alteration to his role? I
think a bit of both. You mentioned there about protecting his family. He made a statement last year that he could see history repeating itself with the world of media. But him and Meghan, their passion is charity work, and they want to make the world a better place. So actually they've already announced that they're going to launch the Sussex Foundation. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of charities they focus on there. But again, there's less red tape and protocol for them to be able to do more and do better good, I think.
Well, that's right. And he's served in the armed forces alongside you, of course. He's done a lot of charity work as well as his royal duties. So his work up until now has been all about serving his country, hasn't it? I mean, would you expect his work in the future to be very much focused on Britain? And would he want to retain some of the elements of his royal duties as he goes ahead? Yeah,
as you said, he served it for his country, did 2 tours of Afghanistan. And actually, since leaving the military, he's done so much for the military and the veterans, with Invictus Games, the Endeavour Fund, combat stress. So that will be one of his focuses, I think, moving forward, but it'll be split between here and Canada. I don't think he'll turn his back on his military family at all.
They talked about wanting financial independence. They don't want, it says in the Queen's statement as well, they don't want to be reliant on public funds for their new lives. How do you imagine that they would raise money? How would they earn their money, do you think?
I think, obviously, working in the world of philanthropy, setting up their own foundation away from the royal boundaries, there's more opportunities from the corporate side for them. And Meghan's come from a humble background. She's always worked all her life, so she probably found it quite difficult, not working. So she's probably keen to get back out there.
How do you think Prince Harry will be feeling now?
I think he'll just want to go to Canada and spend some time with Archie and Meghan, to be honest.
Now to that report by the Royal College of Psychiatrists, which wants social media companies to hand over their data to help protect children and vulnerable people online. 14-year-old Molly Russell took her own life after viewing unregulated, harmful and violent images on Instagram. And Molly's father, Ian, joins us now from central London. First of all, it's been nearly 3 years. How are you and your family coping with the loss?
I don't think a family ever really can find another base after a death by suicide of someone so close in their family. It changes your life forever. But considering that horrible grief that we've gone through, I think we're doing very well. I'm always proud of my wife and 2 daughters who, as a family unit, we all work together, we all support each other, and we all look after each other. And I look to them. If I'm feeling a bit down and a bit weak and a bit sad at times, I look to them and they give me huge amounts of strength. And I know, we all know that Molly wouldn't want any of us to have felt as we do.
Now, in your mind, you're in no doubt that social media played a significant part in Molly's death.
Yes. No doubt at all that social media played a part in Molly's death. What we found as a family very easily on Molly's social media accounts after her death shocked us. The sort of sad, bleak content that's available all too easily on everyday platforms such as Instagram and Pinterest. It's just a horrible world, and once you've found that content, if you are depressed, if you search for help on the internet, which we like to think Molly might have done, you get connected to this content, and then the algorithms of the tech platforms feed you ever more and more of it and lead you into a very dark place very quickly. Self-regulation hasn't really worked. The tech companies still leave this sort of material online, or they find it hard to remove, is what they say. And so something more needs to be done, and a better clarity of understanding about why that data is there and how it affects people is absolutely vital if we're to save young lives. So handing over data, but anonymised data, so that it's all very ethical, very safe, and there's no data privacy issues. Data that will allow institutions such as the Royal College of Psychiatrists to better understand what's going on and why there's a rise in self-harm and suicide in young people.
If you've been affected by anything we've discussed today, you can call the Samaritans on 116 123.
Boosters igniting, the engines firing.
Now, seeds from Isaac Newton's apple tree, which were blasted into space where the astronaut Tim Peake have successfully grown.
And liftoff.
The apple pips were taken to the International Space Station, where they spent 6 months floating in microgravity. Now, the UK Space Agency has launched a competition to find the space saplings somewhere to live on Earth. Well, joining me now is the European Space Agency astronaut and former International Space Station crew member, Tim Peake. Hi, Tim. Lovely to talk to you again. Why were these apple pips taken into space?
Well, really, these apple pips were taken into space because what they represent is, one of the greatest scientists, Sir Isaac Newton, who was inspired by this apple tree behind me, over 350 years old, to come up with his universal laws of motion and, of course, his laws of gravity, on which so much of our knowledge and our understanding to date has been based. So it was a wonderful opportunity to take some apple seeds from this original tree into space, bring them back down, and they've now grown into young saplings which are going to go out to establishments across the UK to help to inspire and educate our future generation of new scientists and engineers.
So the time that they were in space in zero gravity doesn't appear to have had a negative impact at all on their ability to then germinate?
No, not at all. It'll be very interesting to see if there will be any longer term effects. And in fact, at the same time that apple seeds were being flown, we also flew some rocket seeds in space. And that was part of a national competition amongst school children as well. And we did see some degradation in those rocket seeds, probably based on the radiation exposure in space. And this is something we're working towards, of course, because we want to go further into space in our exploration program. And being able to grow our own food in space is very important. So the more that we can understand about how crops and how seeds are affected by space travel, the more that we can learn for how to prepare for future missions.
So where are you hoping that these trees will go? How many saplings are there, and what kind of homes are you looking for them?
So we flew 12 seeds into space. We've got 8 successful saplings to be given out to establishments today. Obviously, it was based on a competition, and these young saplings will be going to places where they'll continue to inspire millions of people over the forthcoming future, in order to be able to think about the wonders of the universe and what the journey that these seeds have taken and where that leads to in the future.
Are you itching to get back into space?
I think every astronaut is itching to get back to space. That's what we train so hard for. But more so than that, the next 5 years in space travel is going to be incredibly exciting. We've got 2 new commercial space vehicles this year that will fly to the International Space Station. That's SpaceX and Boeing. And we've got a new Artemis project with NASA, which the European Space Agency is heavily involved in, which is going beyond low Earth orbit once again, returning to the moon's orbit and eventually landing on the surface of the moon. So there's an awful lot happening in space, and it's a great time to be an astronaut. It's a great time to be involved in the space program anywhere.
The tennis world is used to its fair share of comebacks, from Roger Federer to Serena Williams. Now Kim Clijsters is preparing for her second, nearly a decade after last quitting the sport. The Belgian first retired aged 23 to start a family before returning to become world #1. And speaking to our sports correspondent Martha Kellner, Clijsters says at the age of 36, she can still compete with the world's best players.
At this tennis academy on the outskirts of Bree...
How do you feel out on court compared to, say, when you were in your late teens, early 20s?
It's hard to compare to how I felt when I was 21 years old. Obviously, I'm sure I was a lot quicker, I was a lot faster, my eyesight was better, my reactions were quicker, but I do feel like I can still, yeah.
Do you look at the likes of Serena Williams and Venus Williams and Roger Federer playing into sort of their mid to late 30s and beyond and think, you know what, tennis may be an older person's sport right now?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it is. I mean, I think, you know, over the years, I think Venus to me has been someone who I've really looked up to, and just seeing what Serena has done in the last years, you know, since she had her baby, and has been incredible as well.
Is there for a mum of 3 kids, and I know that's the major role in your life, is there any guilt that you have for coming back?
I think you lose a little bit of the guilt as your kids get older, the more kids you have. I remember when Jada was little and I had to go to practice, and you know, she would be standing inside of our house and I would come here and practice, you know, for my tournaments, and then she would be crying at the glass back door, and I would feel so guilty, and I would think, like, what am I doing?
And now it's a word that can still feel taboo even in 2020, but it is the subject of a brand new podcast. The ꞌHappy Vagina aims to shine a light on women's personal experience about sex, gynecology, and what they're doing to look after their health. It's created and hosted by Mika Simmons, filmmaker and the founder of the women's health charity, the Lady Garden Foundation. Mika joins me now in the studio, along with actress, you'll recognise her from Vikings on the History Channel, Georgia Hurst, who is a guest in one of the upcoming episodes of the podcast. Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Mika, it's interesting, isn't it? It's 2020, yet people still shy away from saying the word vagina, let alone having a conversation about anything to do with it.
Yeah, they do. Can I just first say congratulations on your ¡Happy Vagina?
Thank you very much. Yes.
Let's start with that. I'm assuming
it might not be happy in about 6 months' time, from what I've heard.
Exactly, but I'm assuming it has been. Yeah, there is still some taboo around it. It's definitely changing. I'm really excited by the movement that's going on with women being more open everywhere. But I mean, I started the Lady Garden Foundation, and one of our kind of the things that we were always saying is that people need to talk more. And then I realised that somehow or other we still weren't talking more. We were all saying we need to talk more, we need to share more, we need to be more open and use more of the vocabulary around gynecology and reproduction, and we weren't. So I thought a podcast would be an amazing place to, because it's so free. You can say whatever you want on a podcast.
Georgia, it's interesting. I came to the recording of the podcast that you appear in. It was in front of a live audience. And you come at this from a very personal angle because you had HPV and precancerous cells when you were in your early 20s. Yeah. What was that like? Because I'm imagining as a young woman in her 20s, talking about women's health wasn't high on your agenda.
Yeah, certainly. It was scary, but liberating. I have to just say, being part of the podcast was really important because it really champions our wonderfully sort of complicated bodies. I think, especially in my episode, the key was to look after them. And certainly when I found out I had precancerous cells, I was obviously confused. I was 22 years old. I was fit and healthy. And unfortunately for me, you know, the HPV had turned my cells cancerous, and luckily, since I had them removed, it's completely clear. But for a lot of people, I think it's something like 80% of people have the HPV virus and don't know, and their body clears it out of their system. There's no saying, you know, who's going to be the unlucky ones, but I would just say, listen to your body. If you feel anything unusual or any kind of dodgy symptoms, you're never too young to get a smear, I think, because if I had been 25, my story would have been a really different one.
Mika, the clue's in the title, ꞌHappy Vagina. You have a bit of fun with this as well because, you know, to get people comfortable talking about something that they probably don't talk about that often. It's putting them at their ease, isn't it? And finding a bit of common ground and having a bit of a laugh.
Absolutely. And the opening of each podcast, we have a quiz. So I was like, how am I going to get people to use all the words that they wouldn't normally use or talk about things they wouldn't? So I have a quiz at the beginning, which kind of covers all the vocabulary. We get it all out of the way. And then we go deeper and we talk about really personal issues for people.
Difficult for a woman to start her own business in Britain, but it's even more of a struggle for female entrepreneurs in the poorest countries around the world. So, after balancing a successful legal career with being a mum and a wife of the Prime Minister, Cherie Blair launched a multi-million-pound campaign to give those women, those business women, more support.
We have done amazing work training 680 women entrepreneurs since January 2018.
Thrilled that she's with us now. Hello, how lovely to see you. Talk to me about your campaign and what you've managed to achieve so far.
Well, firstly, as you said, business has a problem across the world. What's the problem? We're not attracting and we're not retaining women. And as a result of that, the world economy is suffering. And research by BCG showed that we could add another $5 trillion to the world economy if women were given equal access to business as men. So we want to help women redefine the future. In 2020, it's time we change that dynamic. So for the last 10 years, my foundation has been working with women entrepreneurs in low and middle income countries, as you say, some of the poorest countries in the world, but also some of the countries that are on the brink of becoming more successful. And they will become more successful, even more successful, if they had women involved in their economy. It's partly to do with the fact that the world of work is designed for men, and it doesn't work for women when they're balancing work and family life. And many of them, therefore, are redefining their future by setting up their own businesses.
80% of the women in the Labour leadership contest, well, 80% of the candidates are women, 1 man, 4 women. We've had 2 Conservative Prime Ministers who were women so far.
I know, well, that is a shame, isn't it? But excellent that we've actually even had some women Prime Ministers. I obviously would like to see more, but as you say, it has to be the right candidates. I think that we are going to see in the next few weeks whether the Labour Party is going to turn out and talk to the electorate as opposed to talking to each other.
Now, a new Sky drama is exploring how Britain's top politicians and experts deal with an impending national disaster and the collapse of society. Robert Carlyle stars as the Prime Minister, thrust into crisis when the nation is plunged into darkness. He spoke to Lucy Cotter ahead of the series' release.
I will now speak to the Palace so that Her Majesty can authorise the necessary powers under the 2004 Civil Contingencies Act. This is now a national emergency, and COBRA will remain active to its conclusion.
What's going to be different for people is this human thing, you know, that you will see the Prime Minister or the other politicians within his cabinet as real people, as human beings, you know. And that's, we tend to kind of not see politicians like that. Sometimes, you know, quite rightly, we don't see politicians like that. When we were shooting it, was Theresa May was in power at that point, and she was going back and forward to Brussels, to this whole Brexit business, you know, and you could see, you know, that she was aging by the day, you know, and because I don't know how I would have felt about it had I not been playing at this part, but because I was looking at this thinking, God, she's just a person, you know, she's really just a person at the end of the day. But to see someone kind of fall apart like that in front of your eyes, I thought was quite sad.
You've been in Canada for quite a long time now. You're in some ways a bit of an outsider looking in.
It has been interesting for me because I've been away for the best part of 10 years now. Someone told me 10 years ago, you know, projected what was going to be happening. They said, you're crazy. You know, even the people that are in power now, they say you're insane. Really sad to see what's been happening, you know, from afar, and seeing how divisive it has been, you know, how divisive the politics has become, and to see how people have, even people within the same family, fighting about this thing. This whole Brexit thing has really kind of torn us apart as a nation. But also we have it in Scotland as well. It was very, very close to the vote with independence in Scotland with that referendum. And the effects of that are still ongoing. You're kind of reluctant to talk about it, and I'm reluctant to talk about it as well, to be honest with you, because you come down one side or the other you're going to get all sorts of abuse from one side.
Now, how are you doing on your New Year's resolutions? Be honest, because when it comes to those resolutions, new research shows that nearly a fifth of us make and break the same resolution each and every year. And with more than half of us saying health goals are the ones that are hardest to keep. Why is it so easy to throw in the towel? Well, one man who knows all about dedication and resilience and getting up and going again and again and again is my next guest, British ski jumper Michael Edwards, better known as Eddie the Eagle. Hello.
Hello. I thought you meant failing all the time.
No, you dig in and you get on with it and you never give up. So
mental
you're the
strength.
Yeah, you're the perfect person to talk about this. So why are us Brits so good at just throwing in the towel and giving up?
I think it's merely to do with modern living. Everybody wants instant results because everything is instant nowadays, and so if they don't feel a health benefit or they don't lose enough weight instantly, they give up, and I think they should just stick with it. Maybe if they sort of lower the goal a little bit, sometimes they set goals too big. I want to lose 10 stone this year. And I think, well, unless you're 50 stone to start with, you're not going to lose 10 stone in a year. But if you lose 1 pound a week, 1 pound in weight, which is not difficult, and then at the end of the year, that's 52 pounds. That's like 4.5 stone. So that's a bit easier. So break it down. By all means, have a big long-term goal, but make sure you have little steps as well. With my ski jumping, I started on the little jumps, work my way up to the big ones, and that's the same sort of ethos, really. Think about it differently. When I told people what I wanted to do, they were great. They helped me with food. They let me sleep in their places. They drove me from jump to jump because I didn't know where they were. So having a support network was vital.
Is it always a good idea to have a positive resolution rather than a negative one? I know giving up the booze, cigarettes and eating better are all positive aims, but you're depriving yourself of something. So I always think if I'm going to do a resolution, I want to add something, whether it's sort of, I'm going to try and learn a language, which is one that comes up every year. I never do it, but I feel like I'm adding. I do a little bit of it. Or I go and travel somewhere, or I'm going to reconnect with friends, doing something positive.
I think, and I think if you have a series of resolutions, I think that helps. You might have a negative one, but loads of positive ones as well. And for me, it's, I want to travel more, I want to ski more, I want to dance more, I want to do things and do exciting things. That's what I put in my resolution.